So welcome to the SBL pre-scene for the March 2026 examination. The industry related to this particular exam is on magazine publication. So all of you are very familiar with newspaper magazines. So we'll be looking into this magazine publication industry. As I always say, the examiner always selects niche industries where most students do not have work exposure. So this time it's about the magazine industry. So just like I stated, you have to have two stages in your preparation. Stage number one is about reading through the whole pre-scene and being able to prepare a mind map. Okay. I wanted you to go through the pre-scene a couple of times. So I prepared a mind map. This is not something very complicated. Just a short note on the whole pre-scene based on your reading. And once you have completely read through the pre-scene, you should be able to read through the notes and create a picture of the whole case. Right? So this is actually what I did in my first read itself. Okay, so I didn't read it multiple times, but I would recommend you to have multiple reads. So based on this, let's have an understanding of the overall case. Okay, right. So our company is Merceh Company, which will be referred to as Merceh in the case. And we are located in a country called Darland. So Darland is our country. Always the examiner prefers taking hypothetical countries. Okay. And we are one of the 5 biggest publishers of magazines. We have a history of 60 years, meaning we are not a new business. We are not a new business. We have been in the industry for over 6 decades, and we are one of the biggest 5 publishers. And in terms of magazines, guys, there can be different types of magazines: education magazines, sports magazine, leisure magazines, and we are predominantly focusing on a wide range of leisure related subjects. So nothing on education and things related to that aspect. And we publish magazines on both print media as well as in digital formats. So nowadays, when it comes to magazines, newspapers, we have printed ones and we have e-versions where we have to subscribe. So Merceh, our company, is in both of these platforms. This is a quick introduction to the company. Don't worry, we'll be given information on all of these in depth. The first set of information is about the sector. So if you look at magazines, magazines are a regular publication. It's not a one-off thing, it's a regular publication. Some magazines publish on a monthly basis, some on a weekly basis, some on a quarterly basis. So from computer to computer, there can be differences in their frequency of publications. And magazines typically contain articles, words, as well as illustrations on a particular subject, or it's aimed at specific readers. Some magazines focus on a particular subject, for example, sports magazines, only on sports. Some magazines don't focus on a subject, but they are focused on a specific reader. For example, they might focus on targeting teenage girls, and they might pick up multiple topics, multiple areas that teenage girls might be interested. From fashion to celebrity to, I don't know, to cooking. So magazines, when they are targeting content, they focus on either of them. First, on a specific subject, or else on a particular client base. Now guys, this is about the sector, meaning this is general industry information. Edition. What is edition? Each version or each publication of magazine is referred to as edition. So if you are if the publication is on a quarterly basis, there will be a quarterly edition. Monthly basis, there will be a January edition, a February edition. So you have to be familiar with this terminology. So edition is basically the new print, simple as that. The 5 biggest magazine publishers have around half of the market share in Darland. So we are one of the 5 biggest publishers. And if you take the 5 biggest publishers, they capture around half of the total market share in the country of Darland. And Darland's total market value is $8,000 million or else $8 billion. Most magazines in the industry adopt both print and digital media. So it's not only us, most of our competitors, they are present in both offline and online media, printed and online media. In general, market for print-based magazines is diminishing. Print-based magazines market has been declining, though it's likely to remain significant for some time to time. From some time to time, sometimes print media might have its own demand. Next is readers. Now, the examiner might use the term readers, so you need to understand what readers mean. Readers are typically audiences who pay to access the magazine. Some pay a subscription to purchase a set of number of editions known as subscribers or access online content for a set period. So readers are those who pay to access the magazine, right? For those printed media, they buy outright. When it comes to online magazines, typically they subscribe. So we'll discuss what subscribers mean, how subscription works. In general, if you look at products, the magazine product, majority of magazines in Darland is related to leisure activities and interests. Now, our company Merceh is also providing content on different types of leisure activities, and that is the mainstream content in magazines. So what does leisure activity and interest basically cover? It could include content related to home, lifestyle, sports, hobbies, computers, motoring, transport, music, film, TV programs, celebrity news. So they have given us a lot of examples on what leisure includes. Okay. And majority of the magazines in Darland, in the country of Darland, is basically focused on leisure, and our company Merceh is also into this category. There are also some business magazines and professional magazines. In addition to leisure, there are also magazines whose content is basically on business related content and professional related content. Digital content. Some just reproduce the content and format in the print version. So we discussed most of the firms are present in both printed media and digital media. Some of the firms, whatever they produced in the printed media, they replicate it and reproduce it in the printed version, meaning you don't find difference. The same thing, the same content, the same format is replicated in a e-version. That's what some competitors do. While some offer extra content in the online magazine platform. So some will have content which is different to their printed version. How do they prepare this different content? This different content includes additional website material related to content. It's online media, right? Possibly links, email newsletters, podcasts. So you are very familiar with what podcast is. The examiner, as I always say, examiner gives you everything you need to know in the pre-scene. So he has also defined what podcast means. So podcasts are audio video programs discussing topics of interest available for download or stream. So this is how they add value to the digital magazine. They might attach related podcasts. For example, we are discussing a particular subject. They might attach a podcast where experts in that industry are discussing on this particular matter. And also social media. Social media, in related to social media, they might attach highlight content. They might promote when is our next edition released, what is our edition all about. They might also raise topics for discussion amongst social media followers. They will want to engage the public in social media and also get that input in the magazine. So some competitors provide extra value in the digital magazine, which is completely different from the printed magazine, while there are some competitors where we don't see a difference in their printed and digital magazine. Are we good? So guys, this is about the sector in general. Publishers also enter partnerships to ensure maximum distribution of digital content. For example, partnership with digital app stores. Some publishers, some companies, they will also get into partnership with other third parties to penetrate the market so that they can sell their digital magazine more and more. Magazine staff may work across a number of different magazines. Okay, staff, an employee might not be restricted to a specific magazine. Sometimes he might work into multiple magazines. If you had read the pre-scene, you would have understood that certain companies, including our company Mercey, has multiple magazines under it. It's not just one magazine for one company. It has multiple magazines under it. So an employee might contribute to multiple magazines of the same company. Magazine authors, when it comes to authors who contribute content to the magazine, it could be employees of the publisher. They are in-house authors, permanent employees. Their full-time job is providing content for the magazine. And magazines also employ freelance authors. Freelance authors are third-party authors. They are not permanent employees. They are contract employees. When it comes to freelance authors get paid only for what they write. Some of the freelance authors are well-known names in the industry related to that subject, and they will be paid to give their opinions on the subject. Some freelance authors contribute content. Some freelance authors provide opinion on a particular matter. That opinion is also on the magazine. For their reputation, they are paid a higher salary. Well-known or expert freelancers may be paid high fees. So I hope that you are now creating a proper mind map on the industry. When it comes to business, when it comes to the magazine business, we understood, yes, there are many competitors, but there are 5 who are dominating the market with almost half of the market share. We also saw that most competitors are present in both printed media as well as the digital media. And now we also saw staff. We don't have staff dedicated to each magazine. No, staff contribute to multiple magazines. And we have finally understood about authors, those who contribute content. These companies have their own set of employees who contribute content, and they also employ freelance authors, well-known names, who contribute content. When it comes to freelance authors, based on the work they do, they get paid relatively a higher salary. So now a picture is being created about the industry. Other magazine staff. So in organizations, we also have these other employees. Okay. Editors. What do editors do? They edit. In other words, they check the author's content for accuracy, spell errors, grammar, and clarity. That's what editors do. They proofread and see if the content okay. Is there a violation of any content? And is it accurate? Because if a magazine reveals inaccurate information, false information, which harms any person, that person can basically sue in court. Simple as that. It's not just about a penalty, it's about reputation. So the editor has a big role.
What if the author thought those things but turned out that it was not correct and it harmed the person's reputation? Like, what will be the court proceedings on that?
It's not relevant here, but see, if you can sue the courts on the claim that a fake information has affected me financially, affected my reputation, I lost so much of opportunities. And if the court has verified that the content is fake, the newspaper, the magazine has to pay. Yeah. This has happened many times. Because people see, and there are instances where people have lost a lot of job opportunities because when they do a background research, they identify, okay, there's a problem with this guy. There is a magazine article, that's a newspaper article, which is negative. So clients, they can basically go to courts. So it's very important for the magazine to ensure accuracy. Who does that? The editor does that. Okay, it's outside scope, but it's good to know that. So editor plays a major role. So it's about everything. It's not just about content accuracy, but spelling, grammar, clarity. Basically, he's the one who gives the okay, telling that we are okay with the content. Design stuff. Design stuff, they are into designing the layout of the published material, how to place the content. Because as you would have read magazines, there are certain, when you go through a magazine, which article should be in the first page, which article should be in the last page, which article should be in the middle, how much space are we going to allocate for each article. Certain images are big, certain images are small. So those are all under the design stuff. IT support staff. The IT support staff, their role is to maintain the publisher's IT infrastructure. As we discussed earlier, most of the magazine organizations, they are also present in the digital platform. So we have to ensure our IT infrastructure is properly maintained. Advertising staff. Advertising staff are responsible for selling space in magazines to advertising businesses, both in printed and digital media. Obviously, wherever we go, we see advertising, right? Okay. When it comes to digital media, when it comes to online, we see web banners, we see sponsored ads. Going through the article, we see a lot of there. In printed media also, we have advertisements going on. So advertising staff, they are into attracting advertisers and handling their services. Marketing staff is responsible for marketing the magazines through various channels. So they are involved in promoting, communicating about the magazine to push sales. And then we have the magazine's editor-in-chief. The editor-in-chief is overall in charge of the magazine, and all employees and freelancers report to him more. So editor-in-chief is like the big boss. So he's the person who is in charge of the overall magazine, and all employees have to report to him. So these are the typical staff of a typical magazine organization. Are we good? Right. So when it comes to exam, sometimes when it comes to certain people's opinions or problems, the examiner might specify their position. So you need to know what their position is. What do they do? Right? The magazine production process. Now here they are giving you exposure to the production process of how a magazine is created. For each edition, there, you know what an edition is now, the publication, the print, the new print. For each edition, the editor-in-chief specifies the content of the edition and who will write them, whether it's in-house or freelance. So see, we discussed earlier, magazines can be daily, weekly, quarterly, monthly, and so on. So when we are going to produce the next magazine, that it is targeting a specific topic, a specific subject. Who decides? The editor-in-chief decides. So based on the subject, based on the content the editor tells, then we need materials. So the authors, those who create content, whether it's in-house or freelance, they have to create content based on the decision by the editor-in-chief. Be careful here. It's not like that I found a good material, I found a good news and I can upload. No. I have to provide material under the relevant topic the editor wants to publish. The authors will write the material. Some authors will create the material at their desks. They sit on the desk in the office, they create the content. Some authors will also go out to obtain material. For example, if you're going to create a content on specific films, they might attend certain film screenings. If you want to create content on a particular sport, they might attend an actual match, let's say a cricket match. Okay, a magazine on let's say a cricket tournament, they will basically go attend the match directly. So authors create content either on site in the building. Sometimes they might have to go out depending on the content. Next is guide. Every magazine has a guide which authors must follow when writing content. So guide is what they should follow when they are creating the content. Guidance will include what content is and is not acceptable. This is very important because if there is no guide, sometimes the content might violate certain laws. Sometimes content might be unethical. Now, those are very professional issues. So, having a guide will tell the authors what they can do, what they cannot do, what content is okay, what content is not okay. The tone, the presentation of the content, and preferred terminology, all of them are also covered in the guide, including how to use paras, how to use punctuation. So, it's very detailed. Authors generally have to produce content by deadline for each edition. Yes. Magazine editions are published periodically, regularly. So we have to basically have the magazine out on the specific date. So authors are given specific deadlines. They have to provide the content by that time. These deadlines allow sufficient time for editing and printing or digitizing by the publication date. Once content is written, it is reviewed by the editor. We discussed this. What's the role of the editor? They check for everything: content accuracy, grammatical mistakes, spell errors. So the editor checks, proofreads the final content. Once writing and editing is done, the content written by authors are brought together into an edition, which also includes advertisements and letters from the magazine readers. The editor-in-chief will review the whole magazine, then print it or upload it. So once the authors create the content, the editor will go through the content. Once he's okay with the content, the designer will basically place the advertisements, place the feedback, and the final output is first presented to the editor-in-chief. If the editor-in-chief is happy with the content, happy with the layout, he approves and it gets printed. You got the process now? Right. But that's important. As I always say, right, Devin, let me come back to your question. So as I always say, you are in a very senior position. You are an advisor, you are a consultant, perhaps you could be a director. So at that point of time, you need to know what's going on in the business, what's going on in the industry, what's going on in the environment. That's why this mind map is very important. Okay? You need to know how things are happening. Right. So I'm getting a question here. We don't need to memorize any of this other than a mind map of pre-scene, right? In exam, they will provide the pre-scene. Yes. In the exam, the pre-scene will be provided, but I want you to keep the important points in the pre-scene at the back of your mind. But in reality, we are not machines. Sometimes we might have an idea. There was a point, but you can't exactly recall. Then you go check the pre-scene. It happens. That's very natural. But you should not be in a position where you go check the 11 pages and struggle to identify the content. That's too risky. Okay. The good thing in the pre-scene is it's all separated under sections. Industry information, company information, sector information. It's easy. So you can easily, quickly identify. Okay. So going through, you can refer to the pre-scene in the exams, but make sure you keep the important points in mind. So when you see a task in the exam, you go through the relevant exhibit, and if you find any related information in the pre-scene, that point should be in your mind. Are you clear? Right. So once we do the complete debrief, you'll understand, what points you should have it in mind. Okay. Right. Next is about the software. Many publishers pay fees to suppliers for software which assist in publishing content, especially for the digital magazine, digital media, the magazine. Many publishers go for third-party organizations because they have softwares which will assist them in publishing content. For them, organizations pay a fee. A digital publishing platform is typically a software used for producing digital content. Its capabilities depends on the software being used, which may include. Now, what does a digital publishing platform do? Companies pay a fee for that. So what does it do? It involves assisting with designing and setting up the layout. It helps us add multimedia elements and publish content onto multiple channels. For example, ensure that the content is in a perfect fit for social media, mobile apps. It may allow inclusion of advertisements as part of the digital content. So we might think, no, it's easy to set things up. No, when you open a magazine online, you see a lot of content. Our content is there. There are links, there are web banners, there are advertisements. Now, how to place that? That's done through this software. You got it? So for this software that facilitates finalizing that content, we have to make a payment. And this digital publishing platform might also provide services including data analytics, search engine optimization, as well as integrate with e-marketing efforts. Some provide paywalls. What are paywalls? Have you ever noticed when you go through certain content, specifically what things you read, the first few pages are easily accessible for free, but if you want to read the remaining, you have to log in or pay. That's a paywall. So this digital publishing platform also sets up this paywall facility, which is where some content is only available on payment or of an additional fee. There can be some content which is nothing free. It can be purely paid content. So that's what a paywall is. So a digital publishing platform provides these services, which is essential for digital magazines, and every digital magazine publisher gets their service and they make a payment for that. Right. Next, let's look at the sources of income for a magazine organization. Number one, sale of print-based magazines to retailers. They have printed magazines. Through selling the printed magazines to retailers, they earn money. Here we can identify the company does not directly sell it to the final consumer. They sell it to retailers like supermarkets and other transport hubs. Another source of income is where some consumers will subscribe to print-based magazines. Now, the first one is where we sell it to a retailer. The retailer will sell it to consumers one by one. The second scenario is again where we print, but the consumer had already subscribed to us in advance. How does subscription work? Subscription is where the consumer pays in advance, subscribing to a set number of editions for a specific period. For example, they might subscribe for the next 6 months. Imagine we are publishing monthly, so for the next 6 months, they are subscribing for the next 6 editions. Subscription cost is less than the total than purchasing edition separately. So, okay, so we discussed about subscription-based purchases. So there are consumers who subscribe for these printed magazines because since they demand multiple editions, subscribing will cost less than buying them outright separately. Yes, there's a problem with this cable. I basically tried to put it. That's fine. That's it. And the editions are sent direct to the subscribers. Now keep in mind, for those who subscribe for print media, they get it to their home address or the address they subscribe for. Okay. Next, subscriptions to digital versions of the magazine. Earlier we discussed subscribing to printed magazines. Now, another source of income is where there are subscribers to the digital version of magazines, and they will subscribe to other platforms where our digital content is available, meaning many magazine companies will have their content available in third-party websites. And in third-party websites also, they will have to subscribe. If you look at a retail context, if you look at, like, let's say Kiehl's as a supermarket retail chain, their products are sold in Kiehl's, right? And they also sell their products through other retailers. So it's something like that. Our company will have their subscription, will attract consumers for subscription, where those online subscribers get access to their own website platform. And also sometimes certain, let's say, content can also be published in an alternate third-party platform where again consumers have to subscribe. So here, consumers subscribe to receive an e-copy through email. And when it comes to other platforms where our digital content is available, they will also access digital content for a set time period. So when it comes to digital content subscribing, it's not about edition, it's about time period. Okay, there we don't subscribe for editions. It's basically a time period. Just like you subscribe for Netflix, it's about 1 month, right? Whether you watch one movie or 100 movies, it does not matter. So digital content subscription works on a time period basis. Finally, sale of advertising space in printed based and digital based magazines. So advertising is also a source of revenue. So when it comes to a general magazine organization, their revenue comes from sale of the magazine, both printed magazines and digital magazines, and also revenue from advertising. Are we good? Right. So this is again the general industry. So that's about revenue. Next is about expenses. The costs of a typical magazine company includes paper cost. For those who are printed magazines, paper is one of their major expenses. And typically, since their publication is regular, these magazine companies which are having printed magazines, they would purchase paper in bulk and have long-term arrangements with paper suppliers. So they can ensure continuity in paper delivery as well as enjoy possible bulk discounts. Next, printing costs. Paper is one cost, printing is another cost. Some companies do it in-house, some companies might outsource it. Distribution costs. We discussed about distributing earlier. How do we sell printed media? Through a retailer. We have to distribute to the retailer. And for those who subscribe, we have to distribute to their home. This is distribution costs. For print-based magazines, magazines sent to subscribers and magazines sent to retailers. Organizations may operate distribution centers which incur running costs. What are the costs? Vehicle cost, transportation cost from printing location. Let's say the factory which prints, we have to transport the magazine from the factory where the printing is done to the distribution center. The distribution center will transport the magazine to individual subscribers through postage, courier. Or the distribution center will also distribute the magazines to retailers. And again, from the distribution center to retailers, there will be additional vehicle and transport costs. Are we good? Right. Employee salary is a very general cost. Freelance author fees, that's also their contract employees, but it's taken separately. Technology running costs. So what about technology running costs? This includes the costs incurred for technology for production of print-based magazines. Now you would have at least experienced newspapers, right? Different newspapers, different magazines, there are differences in their paper quality, differences in how attractive they are, differences in many aspects. So this requires better technology. Just like printers, a general home use printer, you have different types of printer, dot matrix, inkjet, laser printers. So again, when it comes to printing magazines, they also have latest technology. That's also a cost. Technology support digital content. Earlier we discussed a software that the companies pay for, that is the digital publishing platform. So that also involves technology. Fees to third-party supplier who provides a digital publishing platform, and cost of operating own administration and accounting systems. Companies have their own accounting systems that incurs costs, administrative system that incurs costs, and office premises costs. Even though we don't sell magazines at office, we need a physical location to operate our business. Companies might have a single premise, but many of them operate in multiple premises, multiple sites. So this is about the revenue and expense breakdown of a typical magazine organization. Next is about the industry body. The magazine industry is regulated, and the regulatory body in the country of Darland is NMSA, which is the Newspaper and Magazine Standards Authority. That's the regulatory body. So this is a regulated industry. Obviously, it has to be regulated. Imagine if it's not regulated. My goodness, rumors will go up and down. There's no one to control. That will cause mass issues. Okay. So how does NMSA operate? What is their involvement? Number one, they publish regulations and guidance on content accuracy, on taste, on offensiveness. Yes, we can be aggressive, but there is a way of being aggressive. Okay, how to be reasonably offensive. So that is guided by NMSA. Writing on controversial issues. There can be certain sensitive matters where people have multiple opinions. How to write that? Behavior of publishers, employees. And also, behavior of publishers, employees is basically where the magazine organization is the publisher. How can the employees in the organization respond, behave with third parties, behave with potential consumers, respond to media? So how they should respond reasonably. All of them is specified under the regulation set by NMSA. NMSA will also handle complaints and conduct investigations, right? So Bilal had a query earlier. So this NMSA involves in regulation. Let's say you are falsely accused. You can directly reach out to the regulatory authority. They will deal with complaints and investigate any complaints. So NMSA can require magazines to publish corrections to inaccurate or misleading material. This happens. Let's say a magazine had published a content which has some error. If the regulatory body identifies that error, they will tell the magazine, please in your next edition mention that you made this particular error on this particular edition and show the truthful information. That is very normal. Okay. And may impose fines on magazines for breach of regulations. You breach the regulation on accuracy, on offensiveness, on wording, on behavior, you have to pay a fine and you have to correct your behavior. So all of this is overseen by NMSA. Good. Right. In magazine organizations, we have a lot of stakeholders. These are the significant stakeholders. One is the readers, the magazine readers, those who read, the directors of the company, the content authors. Authors are those who provide content. It could be employees in-house or freelance authors outside. Editors, other key employees, those who provide paper suppliers, those who are involved in distributing, those who print. We discussed, sometimes we print in-house, sometimes we outsource. Retailers of magazines like supermarkets. Advertisers, yes, they are one of our main source of revenue. Providers of digital platforms, we also discussed. Some of our content could be in third-party digital platforms. And there are also third-party service providers who provides the software to lay out our digital content. Investors and significant individuals and organizations in sectors covered by magazines. For example, sporting bodies. If we are having content on sports, sporting bodies are also a major stakeholder. Computer game manufacturers, pressure groups. So they are bodies who have a big authority on the content that we are going to develop. And finally, the regulator. These are reasonable major stakeholders, right? They have only mentioned stakeholders. So there could be a possibility where you could be tested on possible stakeholder conflicts. We don't know. The examiner specifically told, do not try to predict questions based on the precinct because it's all based on the exhibits. But providing information on stakeholders gives you a picture on what sort of stakeholders should our organization focus on. So if they have changing needs, those information will be specified in the exhibit, but these are the major boundaries, major stakeholders. Industry challenges. Now this is about the challenges in the industry. Very important. We are also part of the industry. So whatever industry challenges will affect us, will affect competitors in general. Number one, declining demand for print-based magazines. Oh my goodness, this is one of the major revenue sources, print-based magazines. So there's declining demand for print-based magazines and the need to replace the loss of income from subscriptions and sales at retailers. We discussed when it comes to print magazines, it's sold through retailers or sold through subscriptions. So there's a decline in demand on print-based magazines. How can we recover the loss? That's one of the common challenges in the industry. Subject materials are available online for free, so publishers have to produce materials of sufficient quality and interest for which readers will pay. Now, let's say there is a magazine, a sports magazine, where you have to subscribe. You have to pay $5 per month, for example. Now, there are enough online materials where you can get knowledge of that particular matter. So, why should you pay and subscribe? Because you can easily Google it, find some information. So another challenge for magazine organization is to attract people to pay and subscribe. They have to provide content which is unique, which is truthful, which is having more than the free materials online. That's a major challenge. Next, threats to advertising income. Advertising is one of the major revenue sources. Now there is a threat to advertising income. How come this happened? Advertisers are unwilling to advertise in print-based magazines with decline in demand. Very reasonable. The users of those who buy or purchase print-based magazines are declining. So advertisers are wondering, should I advertise in this platform? Because the users are declining. This has threatened our advertising income. Publishers receive income from advertising on digital channels. However, there may be presence of other digital channels. So advertising can happen in both printed magazines and digital magazines. When it comes to printed magazines, we see advertisements, product advertisements. Digital magazines also, there will be ads, sponsored ads, product placements, web banners, there will be. Now, digital channels advertisement revenue is there. But again, there's another threat, that is advertisers are finding other platforms where they can advertise, not just on magazine, magazine platform, magazine media. This is another threat to our revenues. So let's say our product is possibly about fashion, clothing. So yes, we can have it on magazines, which is on lifestyle. We can advertise, we can sponsor on magazines on lifestyle. But now we have alternative online options. We have other type of products. For example, we can perhaps advertise on live stream channels for cricket, perhaps. So this also has threatened the income from advertising. Magazine industry is in a state of continuous consolidation. Even the industry has been consolidated with takeovers or buyouts of publishers. What has happened? Magazine organizations has been acquired by other magazine organizations. Small organizations have been purchased, acquired by large organizations. Or rights to publish particular magazines has been occurring regularly. So there has been a lot of acquisitions where small organizations has been acquired by large magazine organizations. And earlier, remember at the start I told you, even our organization, which is Merceh, which is one of the top 5 dominant businesses, we are also into multiple subjects, multiple magazines, numerous magazines. Not all of them are organically operated. Some of them were through acquisitions. This also has been a threat. Next, we'll be discussing about potential risks. Now again, these are risks in general to the industry. All of these are general, industry related matters. The extent to which we are affected, we do not know. Sometimes we might be very affected. Sometimes we might be we might be affected lightly. However, in general, since we lack that information, we have to assume that we are also affected by these risks. So let's look at the risks. Potential risk number one, production of poor content. Yes. If our content is considered unattractive by the subscribers, what would happen? Loss of reputation, loss of readers, they will stop buying products from us, loss of sales and advertising revenue. Reputation is gone, consumers are gone, those who advertise with us, they no longer advertise with us. So this is a major risk. That means you cannot compromise this. Legal risks. For example, legal fees and damages from publishing inaccurate or harmful content about individuals. They will be sued under defamation. Defamation is basically false accusation. So if anyone had accused the organization on defamation, legal fees. Legal fees and damages from using others' content without proper acknowledgement. That's plagiarism. Okay. Now these are organizations. They make money. There could be some common news, common topics, but I can't just copy it from someone else and sell that content while I earn money from his content. The original author can sue us for plagiarism. Got it? So if we are going to obtain another's content, there should be proper evidence for getting approval, or else we'll have to create our original content. Legal fees and fines for breaching laws of Darland or breaching regulations made by NMSA. These are all legal risks. Are we clear? So these risks has to be avoided. Next, cybersecurity. There are cyber risks as well. Cyber attacks, viruses, hackers. What can they do? They can interrupt our operations. We are also present in digital media. Loss of data, unauthorized access to data leading to fines and loss of trust by leaders. Now we had learned in class about data protection, and we also learned in this case we have customers through subscription. So there could be avenues where the online subscribers would have saved their card details. If that has been accessed by cyber criminals, those are fines. We have to reimburse. Next, search engines and social media risks on this particular matter. For instance, change in algorithm resulting in publishers' material being given lower search engine ranking. Now, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to search engine, there is something called search engine optimization, where when any consumer, when any reader searches a matter on the search engine, on Google, on Yahoo, we see a lot of search results, right? Now, when it comes to managing social media, one of the main targets is ensuring that our company's link is in the first 5 searches. When you search for a matter, you get 20-30 pages, right? Consumers, they only look at the first page. Who will go to the remaining pages? So having our search result in the first page, especially in top 5, is also a target. If our search is not there, we are losing out. That's also a risk. Sometimes social media no longer making content available. We are not frequently updating content on social media. That's also a risk. Poor economic conditions. All right, so now we are seeing a potential macro-environmental risk. Oh my goodness. Poor economic conditions could result in reduction in reader spending on magazines. Yes, a potential economic decline. People are earning less. Why should they pay on subscriptions? Why should they pay to purchase? Because we have enough ample free materials. This is a potential threat. Okay. Problems with paper suppliers. What sort of problems? Let's take a look. Inability to print magazines on time due to paper shortages. Paper shortages could result in delaying printing and delivery on time. Impact on cash flows due to significant increase in paper costs. We can link that with poor economic conditions causing possible inflation. So when it comes to cost of producing print media, print magazines, due to high or increased cost of papers that could increase our overall cost. These are risks. Next risk is problem with platform suppliers. Inability to offer material on digital publishing platform. We discussed earlier the digital platform. We basically outsource this. We pay a fee to the digital publishing platform who will construct the online layout and the materials. If we do not have sufficient material for them to have a successful, attractive digital magazine, that is also a possible risk. Loss of key persons. We discussed many internal stakeholders, internal positions. If we lose out key persons like the editor, it will result in inability to deliver strategy, and there can be adverse impacts on content quality. Next is foreign currency risk. Losses on settlement of foreign currency transactions. If organizations are involved in foreign currency payments and receipts, changes in foreign exchange could result in possible losses. Long-term losses due to adverse movements in Darland's exchange rate. Earlier, we could link this with the potential risk of poor economic conditions. Poor economic conditions, potential inflation causing the paper cost to rise, and this could again affect the exchange rate. And climate changes. How can climate changes affect us? Remember, when it comes to print magazines, we also deliver, transport. If the climate conditions are very severe, that can affect delivery. Adverse impacts on publishers, suppliers, and readers resulting from extreme weather events. Loss of reputation if publishers are seen to be taking insufficient action to combat climate change. Let's say due to severe weather, our magazines are not delivered on time to the retailer. Our magazines are not delivered on time to the subscribers. Now that has reputational issues. Again, these are general risks faced by all magazine organizations. Clear? Right. KPIs. So I hope you remember how KPIs are linked to organizations' objective. We discussed in class. Objectives are set by organizations, which is again cascaded down to divisions, departments, and all managers and employees. To achieve objectives, there are certain key important factors that must be focused on, which is the critical success factors. How do we ensure the critical success factors are met? We set up indicators. That is where KPIs come into play. So KPIs are a measure of important targets employees and managers have to achieve. When you achieve your KPIs, that means you're achieving critical success factors reasonably well, and there's a high chance we achieve our objectives. When it comes to magazine organizations, these are the general KPIs, the general. First, KPIs on revenue and revenue growth. Split of revenue between magazine and advertising revenue. We have to have that understanding. You can't just focus on overall revenue. You also have to see from where did that revenue come. Is it from the magazine sale or is it through advertising sale? Through advertising. So that split also we have to set KPIs on. Split of publication revenue between income from print-based magazines and digital magazines. KPIs on operating profit, free cash flows, earnings per share, number of subscribers in print media and digital media, number of visitors to magazine's website. So we have website as well. Staff turnover. So magazine is predominantly focused on staff because they contribute content, they do everything. So staff turnover is also a KPI. And environmental impacts, for an instance, energy consumption, waste, they are also KPIs. Now, these are general KPIs of the industry. So here you can identify the pain points or the focus points of the company. The company has to ensure they spend money, they invest money, they take sufficient care on all of these areas. Not revenue and cost alone, but also things like staff turnover, environmental protection, ensuring the magazine website is properly operated, because that's also a KPI. Right. So that's about the industry. Next is about the organization. Now, earlier we saw about the industry in general. The previous risks, the previous KPIs, information, business models is about the industry. And now let's look at our organization. There can be differences, obviously, because not every organization has the same business model. Clear? Right. Any questions? Right. So let's look at an overview of our organization. As we discussed right at the start, our company is Merceh company, so we'll be calling ourselves Merceh. Country of operation is Darland. We are one of the 5 biggest publishers of magazines in the country, and we are an old company having a history of 60 years. And our magazine content initially, at the start, 60 years ago, our content was based on home and lifestyle subjects. Just home content, lifestyle content, nothing beyond that. But now we cover a wide range of leisure subjects. So leisure includes a lot of content we discussed earlier. How were we able to expand? It's not only organic expansion. Merceh also has taken over wide range of publishers on other subjects. For example, sports. When Merceh wanted to start a sports magazine, they went acquired a sports magazine. And also by publishing popular magazines over the years. So over the last 60 years, Merceh was able to expand its magazine numbers. Number one, by making some of the existing magazines become popular. Number two, they acquired other smaller magazines. And Merceh at the moment is publishing over 300 different magazines. Most of them are monthly editions, monthly publications. There are also few weekly editions and quarterly editions. This is about our company. Okay. All magazines at Merceh, all of the 300 magazines are published both print and digital formats. So we are simultaneously in both the channels. All of its offices and retailers are in the country of Darland, meaning we are completely home based. We are not present in multiple countries. Even the employees, even the officers are in the country of Darland. And so far throughout the case, they have not mentioned any revenue source from, having transactions overseas, foreign content, foreign subscribers. There is no information mentioned. In the post scene, you would have to see in the exams if they mention anything on that or not. And Merceh, which was actually incorporated 60 years ago, was listed in the Darland Stock Exchange for the last 8 years. So the last 8 years ago, they had listed themselves in the stock market. Next, mission and values. Now, I would say these are very important points. Because an organization's objectives are set towards achieving the mission in the long run. So a mission cannot be avoided. Whatever is in the mission, those must be our direction. If the organization changes its pathway, they will have to revamp the vision. So let's look at the mission, guys. Merceh's mission statement is to enhance our readers' lives through the expert provision of information which engages, enables, and entertains them. See, at the moment, the scope of our content is leisure, perfectly matching this, entertaining them, engaging them, just like we saw in our digital media in general. We also capture consumers' insights on social media and enable them to communicate and respond. Communications with readers stress that authors and readers are of one large community. Okay. So Merceh's communications with readers focus on stressing, telling them that our authors, our readers are all in one large community. Those who create content and those who buy our content, we consider all of them as part of one large family. So we are trying to have that proximity, which will facilitate engaging and enabling them. Okay, they don't have a sense of distance. We want them to engage. We want the consumers to respond, communicate, tell us. When it comes to values, there are other values which involves, there are multiple values, but they have given only few values in the case. The values shown are commitment to sustainability. Now, they had a relevant KPI on environmental impact, energy consumption, waste. Now, that is basically, now that KPI is a general KPI. Our value involves sustainability, so that KPI should be one of the major KPIs to us as well. And developing employees personally and professionally. So another value is developing employees professionally through improving their skills, talents, as well as personally. So we have to see in reality, are we caring about these employees? If we are developing employees personally as well, obviously this could be seen by staff turnover. An organization focused on developing employees professionally and personally looks at employee satisfaction personally also, right? So this could be reflected through a KPI like the staff turnover. Again, we don't know what our KPIs are. So if our KPI does not capture these two KPIs, we have a problem with explaining, are we securing our values? Got the picture there, Bilal? Next, Mercey also has their own ethical code of conduct. It's mainly, so we don't know the rest. Mainly containing principles on areas such as integrity and honest content creation. Now, this is a very good ethical code. We discussed about the ethical code of conduct in class, the 5 codes of ethics. Look at this point, integrity and honest content creation, meaning if we honestly create content, there's a high chance we will not copy someone else's content. So the legal risk of someone else accusing us of plagiarism, it can be reduced to a major extent. Compliance with NMSA regulations, that must be done. We have to comply with the regulatory bodies' regulations. So these are some of our ethical codes. These are about our organization. So far, I don't see a problem with the mission because the company's products are in line with the mission. But again, the company might have to think on how to engage them, because they have given us, certain industry risks like declining print magazines. So if print magazines are at a decline, we have to decide, what should we do with our print magazine investment? Should we reduce our presence there and focus more on digital magazines? And if our number of subscribers drop, obviously our engagement drops. We'll have to see how can we focus on improving engagement, because we have those industry risks. Print magazine has a decline, and when it comes to digital magazine, again, we have to provide sufficient content of value for those subscribers to retain with us. So those additional information, the examiner will, if he's testing us on that, he will give more detailed information in the exhibit. But I'm just letting you know in advance of these points. Ownership of Mercey. So when it comes to the ownership, shareholding split is 60% is owned by institutional shareholders, 30% by directors, and 10% by other minority shareholders. There is no indication of who the founders are, whether it's a family business. There is no such indication, so you can ignore that context. In most of our pre-scenes, typically they were started by a couple of people as a family business or as a partnership, and then extended to companies. Here we do not know the origin of that. However, when it comes to a newspaper organization which requires massive financial investment, we could have started big. Governance. When it comes to governance, corporate governance, Mercey has 12 directors. Of the 12 directors, we have 6 executive directors and 6 non-executive directors. These non-executive directors includes the chair. Now, I told you during classes, from country to country, the ideal board composition is not the same. In the preceding, they have specifically mentioned this 50-50 split is required by the Darland's corporate governance code. So the corporate governance code in the country supports having a 50-50 split, and we are satisfying that. Okay. All NEDs are independent. Perfect. As per the code definition. Fantastic. So no need to go question the independence of NEDs unless you find a problematic situation in the exhibit. You find information in the exhibit where you see an NED's independence is compromised. Then you can go and question. Committees at Mercey. Mercey has nomination committee, audit committee, remuneration committee, as well as risk committee. Fantastic. Note that risk committee is not required by the corporate governance code in Darland. But the corporate governance code then obviously requires the other three. We have it, and we also have a risk committee. This could give us indication that Mercey is focusing and providing sufficient attention on risk management. Got it? Because there's no requirement, regulation to have a risk committee, but Mercey is still having a risk committee. They are paying such care and attention on risk management. Board structure. So earlier we discussed we have 6 NEDs, 6 EDs. So under the chief executive officer, who is an executive director, we have the operations director, finance director, marketing director, HR, and IT director. And when it comes to NEDs, we have 5 generic NEDs and 1 chairperson who is also a non-executive director. Okay. So in this particular layout, they had shown us the relationship between executive directors under the CEO. Through these lines, they have shown us all other 5 work under the CEO. They haven't shown us how chair and the NEDs are having a superior subordinate relationship. They haven't shown that. Not a major problem, but this is also a possible finding. Based on what I see here, the chair and the NEDs are having equal authority. You can see, right? Authority levels. That's what the structure says. In general corporate governance, the CEO heads the executive directors, the chair heads the board of directors. So the chair being placed in this at the same level as the other NEDs and the CEO is something you can keep in mind. In case there is an exhibit and a task related to this chair's role, you can bring this up, questioning the exam. Are we good? Now comes our product. Earlier, so far, the discussions were about the industry, general products. Mercey's products. Mercey, as we discussed, we have over 300 magazines and we are into both print and digital magazines. When it comes to print magazines, how do we earn? We earn through retail sales and subscription sales. Perfect. Digital magazines, how do we earn? We have digital subscriptions. When it comes to digital subscriptions of Mercey, we allow online access to all past and present editions. So we provide online subscription we provide online access to subscribers. Once they subscribe, they can access our website, our magazines. They can access any magazine, not limited to editions or anything. Just like, as I said, just like Netflix. You pay for 1 month. During this 1 month, you can access everything in Netflix. They can't say, no, you can't watch this movie. No, you're subscribed. That's very normal. Now here, this is how we are different from other general competitors. We do not offer digital version distributed by emails. Competitors have another alternate source of income through digital magazines. That is, they might issue the digital magazine to subscribers through emailing. We do not do that. Okay, we do not do that. If we want to pursue an alternate source of distribution, alternate channel of distribution, this is one thing we can consider because competitors are doing it. Next is about our organization. We are a pretty large organization, one of the 5 largest organizations, magazine organizations in the country. So we have 8 divisions. So you know what divisions are. So 8 divisions based on content. For example, some of those divisions could be division on sport, division on lifestyle, division on computers, and so on. Each division has one main office and some have a few smaller offices as well. In a general organization structure, divisions operate independently. So each division has its own main office. And depending on the operation capacity, they might have multiple small offices under the main office. And the overall company, Merceh, has an overall head office. This head office is located in Darland's capital city, which is in the north of the country. And keep in mind, this head office locates multiple teams, including the senior management team, the procurement team, the marketing team, and administration team. All of them are located at the head office. Clear? We don't know to what extent this information might help us. Again, I told you it's based on the exhibit. If the examiner wants to test us on this, he will give a task and give further details in the exhibit. If he doesn't want to test us on this, he will not give exhibits. You can ignore that. So I hope you are still creating a proper mind map. Industry gone, now it's about our company. When it comes to authors, we discussed in the industry in general, we have in-house authors as well as freelance authors. Let's look at Merceh. In Merceh, most authors work 2 days a week in the office and work from home the rest of the time. We do not know how many days are their working days. Assuming it's 5 days a week, most of them work 2 days at the office premises, 3 days out, most of them. Again, it depends on the work they do, the role they do. Just like I told, if you are working for a sports magazine, you might be out most of the time. Let's say there's the Champions League going out, for example. You might always be in the stadium. But let's say you are focusing on a different matter, then you might be at the office most of the times. But these are general indicators. Most of them, they stay 2 days a week in house, and the rest they are out of the company collecting materials. Some would spend time out of the office gathering materials for magazine content. For example, attending sports fixtures for sports magazines. This is about the in-house authors. Content production staff. Staffing of magazines vary depending on many factors. The amount of staff we require for different magazines changes based on different factors like subject matter and frequency of publication. Understandable, right? The amount of staff we need for weekly magazines and quarterly magazines, obviously there will be differences. And the subject matter. Very open materials versus technical materials, there will be obviously different staff requirements. All magazines employ one or more in-house authors. So every magazine will have at least one in-house author, because we can't completely rely on freelance authors, who will write some of the content required. Most magazines use freelance authors. Freelance authors, why do we use them? Because they provide expert content, as in-house authors lack expertise. So generally freelance authors, they have more expert content than in-house authors, and we can't lose freelance authors, because remember, one of our mission is to provide engaging, entertaining material. So the material is very important, so we cannot avoid freelance authors. Freelance authors are expensive, but we can't help, because in-house authors lack that expertise. So this is a necessary expense unless the in-house employees can replace the expertise of freelance authors. That's why freelance authors are paid high rates or as cover if employee authors are not available to do the work. What does that mean? Sometimes there's a content, we need our internal in-house employee to provide the content, but the employee is not available. At that instance, freelance authors are contacted to provide us content for this particular matter. The next matter is about the paper and printing of Merceh. Paper is sourced from several paper suppliers, meaning we are not relying on one paper supplier. The advantage is we can reduce risk. If you put all of our eggs in one basket, something goes wrong with that particular supplier's factory, we are gone. So we have multiple suppliers. But there's a possible risk: paper quality, paper costs. Paper qualities can differ. And states publicly they obtain raw materials from sustainable resources. Now here you can see we discuss industry KPIs on sustainability and Mercey's value on sustainability. So this is an action which basically supports that. We have multiple suppliers for paper, and there is public statement that these suppliers are obtaining paper from sustainable sources, meaning our paper procurement is from sustainable sources. Mercey prints in-house. Most publishers outsource. Now this is a very different strategy of Mercey. When it comes to printing the paper, most competitors outsource. We do it in-house. What should be done? Focus on two things. At the end of the day, we look at cost benefit. And also you can consider Harman's process strategy matrix. We discussed when to outsource, when to automate, when to in-house. At the end of the day, if we speak very practically, we have to see what are the benefits and costs. So sometimes you might be given a task where a proposal is brought to outsource printing. So based on the information, you have to compare the risks and benefits. Are we cool there? All right. Distribution. Mercey transports its magazines from its printing location to its distribution hub, located in the center of Darland. Head office is in north of the country, but the distribution location is in the center of the country. So Mercey prints in-house. So after we print, we deliver it to the distribution hub, which is in the center of the country. This distribution hub will send the magazine to individual subscribers through postal services and also delivers the magazine to retailers directly. IT systems. Mercey pays for the use of the same digital publishing platform for many years. When it comes to digital magazines, we discussed about digital publishing platform. As long as the content is given, generally magazine publishers, they pay a fee to this digital publishing platform to set their digital magazines. Mercey also has been using the same platform for many years. The platform offers customizing the print-based magazine content to publish on website, incorporating images and some data analytics facilities. We discussed earlier what are the services of digital platform. So they provide these services, customizing it to the relevant interface and adding more content besides the content in the printed platform. Mercey's subscriber database is operated in with the data protection regulations. Thank God. Okay. For each subscriber, Mercey records the contact details, magazines what they subscribe for, because we have 300 magazines, and the payment information. So you have to be careful with data protection here. There's a risk there. Board considers Mercey's administration and accounting systems to be sufficient for its purpose. So the board of directors considered the accounting system is sufficient for our internal purposes. Administration is also sufficient. Stakeholders, the major stakeholders of Mercey is the same as what was given in the sector information. We saw a lot of stakeholders. The risks of Mercey, the major risks, is also the same, those listed in the sector risk. So the risks of the sector, we also experience the same. That's what was expected as well. Alright guys, so with this marks the end of that particular section. The next information is about website information. Now they had given us an image. I've taken a snapshot here, but let me break this down further. So in the website information, they have given us the corporate social responsibility statement. One of our values is about sustainability. So we have a CSR statement. And we have to ensure, in the exhibit, always ensure, is the organization implementing strategies to support this? It's fine. If the organization engages in strategies which is violating, that's a problem. So I've broken this particular part down, just broken it down. CSR statement involves content provision, work environment, stakeholder engagement, social and environmental commitment. Those four are the major sections. Under content provision, what is our statement in the website? So website is a public media. Under content provision, we have stated that we will be providing trustworthy content, accuracy, original content, no plagiarism, engaging, enabling, and entertaining readers. So our content should be engaging, entertaining as well, not boring stuff. So we might have to focus on adding value there. And we have to counter threat of misinformation and fake news. Again, focusing on trustworthy content. Aim to embed our core values, including sustainability, in the content produced. So if you are given a scenario where a company is, where Merceh is engaging in a strategy or proposing a strategy violating any of this, then you have to say no. Even if it costs us, we have to say no. Work environment. Again, CSR strategy or CSR statement on work environment. Involves Merceh providing a supportive environment to employees to develop top quality content. A supportive environment. It's not just physical environment. It's many aspects. We discussed authors sometimes create content on the desk. Sometimes they go outside. So facilitating that is one of their major strategies. Reward strong performance. The pre-scene has not mentioned anything about their reward schemes. We don't know. Nothing was mentioned. So in the exhibit, if it is tested in the final exam, they will give an exhibit on this particular matter. Diversity. So they promote diversity. They foster community culture. Earlier we discussed that we communicate to the readers that we want the authors and the readers to be part of one large culture. That's also part of the CSR initiative to clear that bond. Development of employees, both professional and personal development. This was directly stated as one of their values. Managers are always ready to listen to employee concerns. Now, I have a feeling this could be a possible area of being tested. How managers handle employees. They are specifically mentioned, one of the CSR statement is, managers are always available to listen to employees. We are one of the top 5 companies, 300 magazines, 8 divisions, meaning massive number of employees. So are the managers listening to all employee concerns? Okay, that could be, I don't know, obviously, unless the paper is released, I don't know what will be tested, but I have, this is a potential problem that could be raised. Okay, and again, this could not be raised also. Okay, don't predict. Stakeholder engagement. Committed to respectful and regular dialogue with all stakeholders who are majorly affected. The respectful tone. Again, the regulatory body also focuses on tone. And again, that's also part of our communication. So again, be careful if there is any task or exhibit given on, let's say, a possible email extract on how we communicate with the stakeholder. If we were rude, that's a problem. There's a lack of internal controls there. And regular dialogue. Are we having regular communication with stakeholders? Again, we don't have information in the pre-scene, but that is one of our commitments. Want to find out what stakeholders think of us and learn what is important to those stakeholders. Take actions to address stakeholder concerns and enhance stakeholder relationships. Now, we want to find out what stakeholders think of us. and what is important to them. That's a pretty important point here. One of our focus is understanding what is important to the stakeholders. Remember, a general magazine, who decides the content for the next edition? The editor-in-chief. If there is a particular topic the stakeholder wants, and if our topic is no way related to this, that's another problem. I'm giving you different perspectives. You got it? Knowing what they want from us and not providing them, that's a problem, right? So we have to see, is this also, is there any violation on this particular part? Again, none of that is predictable. Might be tested, might not be tested. I'm giving you all options that I see. Take actions to address stakeholder concerns and stakeholder relationships. Now, when I think of stakeholder, we think of Mendelow's matrix. So there's a potential stakeholder conflict that can be tested. Social and environmental commitment. Build a sustainable future where our business has positive social impacts. So bringing positivity to society includes content-wise as well. Our content should also provide value, benefits to society. It also has to be considered. Looking for ways to avoid using irreplaceable resources. Okay. For example, renewable resources, fine, but if you're going to use non-renewable resources, try to find substitutes. Aim to reduce direct emissions and impacts to reduce the environmental impact. Encourage suppliers, this emission could be carbon emission, energy emission. Encourage suppliers to follow our objectives of being socially and environmentally responsible. Earlier we discussed when we were looking for suppliers, the suppliers, what's that content? Yeah. Paper is sourced from several paper suppliers who publicly stated that they obtain raw materials from sustainable sources. So at the moment, the suppliers we have contracted, they are also ensuring their source is sustainable. Right. So this has been reasonably achieved. Committed to developing transparent reporting of our impact to community and environment. So how can we ensure transparent reporting? We have to report. Report on what? Impact to community and environment. So in our annual reports or integrated reports, there should be non-financial reporting as well. Now we say we have to report transparently, but there is no non-financial information. Now that's a problem there. So here we can see there's a high chance we also provide many non-financial information in our integrated annual reports. And this is the final exhibit, financial and non-financial information. All right, here it is. Revenue. As you can see, guys, if we had revenue from 2001 to 2005, this is the current year. For the last 4 years, there has been a growth in revenue, but the last year, the revenue has been stagnant. Revenue from publications. Now we discussed there are revenue from publication, revenue from advertising. So here we see revenue from publication, here we see advertising. Revenue from publication, it has been grown, and the last year there has been a decline, just like it was told. The demand for printed magazines has been declining. There it's reflected, it's realized. Revenue from advertising, even though they mentioned advertising revenue also has risks where advertisers are not interested in our media, but still we have been attracting more advertising revenue than the last year. So we haven't felt that yet, but that risk is there. Operating profit in dollar millions, my goodness. So I would say the last 2 years there has been a decline in operating profit. Now guys, you see revenue has been a growth, there has been a growth and the stagnancy, there's no decline. But operating profit has declined, meaning our operating expenses have increased. Cost of sales could have increased. We discussed when it comes to cost of sale increase, paper prices had increased. There's a risk. There's a potential risk of paper price increasing. This could increase cost of sales. And other operating expenses would have drastically increased. Because guys, see, 2001 revenue is here, 5 is here. So from around 550 to around 640, there's around a 25-30% increase. But look at, this is the bottommost operating profit, telling that there's a massive operating expense. Again, we don't have a lot of information on the reasons, but we just know cost of sales and operating expenses had drastically increased than the revenue growth. The examiner's testing on this, he or she will provide further details. Next, print-based edition sales. This is in volume. When it comes to printed magazines edition, what is the volume sales in millions? We have seen for the last 4 years, there has been a constant decline. They haven't given us about the number of subscribers. So we can see if the sales of printed magazine has been declining over the last 4 years, the revenue growth would have come from obviously advertising and potential digital magazine sales, subscription sales. Energy consumed. All right. So here, so one of our company's CSR statement was to reduce direct emissions and impacts. It could be energy emissions as well. So they had given, yes, last 2 years, for the last 2 years, energy emission has reduced. Okay. So this is what we have to observe. I've given some points below. Revenue at a rise over the last 4 years, but stagnant last year. Drop in revenue from publications. Increased revenue from advertising. Operating profit at a decline over the last 2 years. Possibly high operating expenses. Operating profit at a decline over the last 2 years. The reason could be operating expenses are drastically increased. And the examiner has mentioned Mercey's operating profit margin in 2005 was 27%. So 2005, they have given the operating profit in millions, but the operating profit margin is 27%. Is it good or bad? We don't know. We have to compare with our previous years as well as with competitors. But obviously, when we compare with our previous years, revenue increased, operating profit decreased. This has been decreased. We have to also compare with competitors and understand what is their current operating margin. If they have a higher operating margin than us, that means we are having an internal issue. Internal controls are weak, possibly inefficiencies. But if competitors' operating margin also has reduced, that's an industry risk. Again, we don't have information here. Are we clear? Don't just jump and say, no, my goodness, we are doomed. Yes, we are doomed, but we don't know whether we are doomed or we are doomed. Whether it's us or up, whether it's only us or the whole industry. So generally, we can say things are going bad when it comes to profits, but we have to see whether this risk is company risk or industry risk. Right? Sales of print-based magazines, the volume at a decline over the last 4 years. Yes. Energy consumed at a decline over the last 2 years. Energy consumption has reduced. That's the only good news I saw here besides advertising. All right. So with this, your pre-scene is over. So guys, see, when I discussed the pre-scene, were you able to create a picture in your mind, starting from the industry situation, the business model, the revenue source, how the business happens, what their products are, what their risks are, and then we move towards our company situation. We identified when it comes to a lot of factors, we see similarities between us and the general competitor, but there are also certain differences. For example, we don't provide email subscriptions and we do the printing ourselves. Those are two of the main uniqueness of our company's operations. Are we good? So this is the stage I wanted you to do at home. Read through the pre-scene and note it down in a Word document. When you have this note, you can clearly create your own picture because you are the person who wrote the notes. It's your words. So I prepared this based on my first read, and I still am able to connect the points. Right? Good. So if there are students, if any of you have not done your full read, I want to do that read and then you can compare with my discussion. If there are altering viewpoints, now that's where we have to discuss. Any areas, any questions, clarifications? Devmini, Yumna, and Shifa, all good so far? You have to have full clarity on every detail in the pre-scene. So pre-scene is available in the exams, just like you guys know. So you have to ensure you don't have confusions in any of the content. The second stage is where I usually do a SWOT analysis. So different instructors have different approaches. What I do is, since we can't predict the final exam questions, I need to know what are the key points. What are the key points internally and externally? So to analyze the internal environment and the external environment, a simple method is SWOT. So based on what I read so far, now we create a SWOT. So now let's have a look at the SWOT analysis. Now when you encounter a task, you read the relevant exhibit to answer the task. This SWOT can help you out if there are any related information. Okay, so let's take a look at the SWOT. And I want you to see, and I want you to know, are you able to identify these strength, weakness, and opportunities and threats? Now that is important. If you are going to, in classes, we had discussed about the TOWS matrix, yes or no? After SWOT, we discussed TOWS matrix, how to use strength to capture opportunities, how to use strength to reduce threats, how to reduce weakness to ensure opportunities are not lost, and how to reduce weakness to reduce the threats. So if you are given a particular proposal, if there is a market opportunity outside, we have to see how our strengths, what we do better than competitors, those are our strengths, how our strengths can be made use of. So let's take a look at the SWOT. Let's start with the strengths. Just like I told in class, I prefer doing SWOT like this. I write the content and I do a personal rating, showing my judgment. So I know which factors are the more important factors and the less important factors. Number one of our strengths is we have a strong market position. We are in the top 5 in Darland. Explanation, we have a large market share in an 8 billion industry. They mentioned the market value was $8,000 million. So it's $8 billion industry. So we have a strong competitive standing, a very high strength. Those who can affect us directly are the remaining 4 competitors. Besides them, the other competitors are they have lesser market share. We have a 60-year history. We are not a new company. So we have been operating for 60 years. Brand credibility and long-standing reputation, a very high strength. Diversified revenue streams. We discussed the alternate revenue streams. And also we are not focusing on one magazine, it's 300 magazines. We are focusing on print sales, digital subscriptions, and advertising income. It's a high strength. If you put all of our baskets, all of our eggs in one basket, let's say we are only on print sales, we are doomed. Because why? We saw a decline in print sales. So we have diversified our revenue sources. Growing advertising revenue. Yes, there's a risk of advertising being decreased, but we have experienced growth in advertising. That's a good strength. Advertising revenue increasing despite print decline. That's also a strength. Meaning we are getting more and more customers than the previous years. Strong governance structure. We discussed that we are following the corporate governance of the country. 50% independence NEDs. We also have audit committee, risk committee, remuneration committee, and yes, the audit, risk, and remuneration committee. Even though the risk committee is not mandated by the corporate governance code, we still have it. I would say it's a medium because that's also our competitors also might have it. In-house printing capability. We understood in the case that most competitors outsource printing, but we do it in-house. This can be taken as a strength because we have greater control over quality, greater control over timing, and it's highly confidential because we have the content ourselves. The medium strength. because magazines are public material. There's nothing, important secret things there. But our content until the moment of publication, it's highly confidential. CSR and sustainability focus. They gave us one of our values is on sustainability, and they gave us CSR statements as well. So we have focus on sustainability and CSR. Ethical code, sustainable paper sourcing, decline in energy use. These are also strengths. Again, we can't comment because they haven't mentioned anything about competitors. Are competitors sustainable or non-sustainable? We don't have information, but relatively this is a reasonable strength. Because by doing this, you would have gained the support of many stakeholder groups, including the regulatory body. Hybrid working model. We discussed employees 2 days they work in the office, the rest they might basically not be in the office. Flexible work structure, potential cost efficiency. A low strength because that's how the industry works. It's not common to us, it's in the industry. Are we good with the strengths? Now, when we think of major points in the pre-scene that could help you with the final answer, these strengths are what you need to remember. Next, weaknesses. Now, these are internal problems. What are weaknesses? Things that Merceh is not doing well than competitors. What competitors are doing better than Merceh. Number one, we are highly dependent on print model. Merceh is highly dependent on print model because we discussed we have 300 magazines. All magazines have the print and the digital version. So print is one of our main income sources. Unfortunately, print sales volume has been declining for 4 years, a high weakness. Declining operating profit. Operating profit is falling over the last 2 years. Operating cost pressures would have resulted in operating profit declining. That's also a major weakness. High fixed costs. How? Because when it comes to printing, we do in-house printing. That is a fixed cost. We do distribution. And obviously we discussed we have weekly, monthly, quarterly editions. So that is routine costs. So those costs could be pretty high. Reduced flexibility versus outsourcing model. A high weakness. Now think about print, think about in-house printing. For the last 4 years, the printing sales has declined. So there's a high chance there is idle capacity. We are printing magazines by ourselves in-house. 5 years ago, the printing quantity has been declined over the last 4 years. So the printing machine which you had invested is not in use, it's idle. Costs are high. But our competitors, they outsource. Now they have that benefit. Limited digital innovation. We discussed when it comes to digital service, we have been obtained the same service for many years. So same platform has been used for many years. Limited analytics and no email distribution. One is we don't provide email subscription. That is something we don't do. That's a weakness. That's because that could be a potential source of income. Second thing is we have been using the same platform for many years. While we have no information telling that has the platform increased value for us or not, have they done something better for us or not, we don't have information. This is a medium weakness. Our offices are only in Darland, so geographic concentration only in Darland. So we are not diversified internationally. Again, we don't have information about competitors. If competitors are also local, then this is not a weakness. But if competitors are also present internationally, magazines, there's a high chance it could be international. These are not newspapers, these are magazines. You go to a bank, you see some foreign magazines, right? That's why I put that as a weakness, a potential weakness. Again, we are lacking information here. What we can say is our scope is just for local. There's no international diversification. And it only exposes the local economy because sometimes readers could also live overseas news, foreign culture, foreign habits, foreign updates. So again, we don't have information because all offices are only in our country. So even if we capture overseas news, there will be a limited exposure. A medium weakness. Why do I put medium rather than high? I don't know the competitor situation. So to be safe, I put it as medium. If any of the competitors have set up offices abroad, collecting information abroad, this becomes a high weakness because they are providing better value than us. Reliance on expensive freelance experts. Having freelance experts are also a strength because we can ensure they provide good quality content, but it's expensive. That's a weakness. Costs increase, operating expenses have increased. High fee structure, dependency on key individuals. Again, freelance authors are a common norm in the industry amongst all the magazine organizations. So I put that as a medium weakness. It's about dependency as well as high cost. Are we clear? Again, when it comes to your rating, sometimes there will be smaller changes in how you rate, whether it's low, medium, high, there can be smaller changes. It's fine because here we still experience insufficient information. So you have to make the judgment based on the information you have. So now did you observe strengths and weakness? If there are potential problems given in the exam, you can see are there any weaknesses which would have contributed to those problems. Got it? So this is how SWOT can be of help. Next, let's look at the external environment. Opportunity. One opportunity is expansion of digital subscriptions. We saw number of prints have declined, but our revenue has increased. So on top of advertising, digital subscriptions would have increased. We don't have data on the digital subscriptions, but that could have increased reasonably. Premium paywalls, tiered models, exclusive digital content could be high opportunity. We discussed earlier, one of the industry risks is readers can access free information online. So if we have exclusive content, then that could be a high opportunity. For example, let's say there's a sports magazine. If you're able to have an exclusive interview with a very famous sports player, it's only with us. Now that adds value. Data analytics and targeted advertising. Improve personalization in communication and could result in high opportunities. So this is something that we experience nowadays when it comes to email communications, digital communications. It's all personalized, addressing your name, addressing your needs. If you are someone who is very interested in lifestyle, you can get personalized communication on lifestyle. They don't share information about anything else. So that could be of high opportunity. Just like many of you would have, used e-commerce platforms. You get emails, right? Suggesting certain products. It's based on your choices. And sometimes when you see a nice offer, you are tempted to log in and purchase it. Now that is something related to this. Industry consolidation, just like we discussed, larger magazine organizations have been acquiring smaller magazine organizations. So acquiring smaller publishers can result in economies of scale. High opportunity. We acquire smaller magazine, those customers also now belong to us. We can enjoy some cost benefits on mass production. Growth in digital advertising. Shift from print ads to higher margin digital ads. High opportunity. Earlier we discussed when it comes to print magazines, the cost of paper has a high chance of increasing. And if our dependence moves towards the digital magazine, paper costs are a no-no. And see, we don't have a lot of variable costs there. Not like print magazines. For every magazine you print, you have a cost. But in digital magazines, that's not the case. You design. Once the designing is done, that's it. That's also considered as an opportunity. If you can switch our customers from using print magazines to digital magazines, we can save a large amount of costs. High margins can be retained. Strategic digital partnerships. Now, guys, this is a suggestion. Now, it's not given in the case. Sometimes you might be asked to recommend. We could also, they have mentioned generally in the industry, we have partnerships with third parties to increase our digital magazine sales. So we can also think of linking with app stores, streaming platforms, through influencers. We can think of expanding the magazine reach. That's what magazines do, right? What do they do? The cover page shows about a famous influencer, and interested parties might go wonder what is this magazine about, what do they say. If we can have partnerships with those major influencers, that could also increase our subscription numbers. That's a medium opportunity. Sustainable differentiation, attract ESG focused investors, advertisers. So far, the company has been doing well with CSR and environmental protection, including energy usage. So we can basically look at this point, consider ourselves as an environmentally friendly company, and attract ESG focused investors and advertisers. Again, a medium opportunity. Finally comes threats. Now, these are external environmental factors that could harm the business. Number one, decline of print media. That's a common threat every magazine organization faces. High threat. Next threat is free online content. Subscribers, if they can access the same content for free, we can lose subscribers. High threat. Readers may avoid paid subscription because of this. Advertising competition from other digital platforms. We discussed this as a general risk in the industry, where advertisers might be interested on advertising digitally, but not in digital magazines, but other platforms digitally. So loss of advertising share to social platforms. High threat. Cyber risk, data breach risk. Remember, we discussed subscribers, bank accounts are also with us. Data breach risk is very high. Subscriber payment is stored, so that's a high threat. You cannot compromise that. Economic downturn, which was discussed. If the economy is actually in a decline, consumers might reduce their subscription expenses. So this could reduce discretionary spending and ad budgets. High risks. If the economy is not doing well, we lose subscribers, and sometimes we might lose advertising clients as well. Clients might also reduce their budget for advertising. Paper supply and cost volatility. Shortages of paper or price increases can affect the cash flow. A medium threat. Algorithm changes, we discussed. When it comes to search engine, we want our product search to be in the top search list. That is also a potential threat if we are not in the leading searches. Reduced visibility and web traffic, it's a medium threat. Climate change risk, which affects distribution, which affects logistics of paper, logistics of distributing magazines, printed magazines. Supply disruption and reputation expectations, medium threat. Regulatory risk, newspaper and magazine standards authority. So far, they had not provided indications of violating regulations, but there is a risk there. If we violate regulations, it could result in fines, reputational damage for non-compliance. Medium to low risk. Why do I put low risk? Because so far there is no indication that we are violating. Okay, so this is for SWOT. So first, see, you need the mind map in your mind. The mind map, the picture should be in your mind. You need to know the whole story. The second, based on the SWOT, now you understood the key points that could be of help when you are doing the task. Are we good? Right. Sometimes students keep on bothering me, sir, will I get questions on this or that? So just in case, I have also added a particular analysis on potential areas. Now, keep in mind, these are not predictions. If I say it's prediction, you might scold me after the exam, telling that, sir, I didn't get this task. No one can predict because it's based on the exhibit. But based on the SWOT, I was able to pick out certain areas that could be further tested. Okay. Take a look at this. So the area is given. I've given the information given in the pre-scene and possible trigger in the exhibit. If the if the examiner wants to test you, he will give you this information in the exhibit and what you should be ready to do. I'm giving a suggestion there. As I always say, there is no one single strategy. I'm just giving you a possible pathway. Let's take a look at them. Number one, the area is on digital strategy and business model. Just like we saw, one of our major income sources is on print magazine, and print magazine has been declining for the last 5 years. Should we change our business model? Should we rely more on digital media? That's one thing that could be tested. Relevance from the pre-scene, we saw print magazine sales declining, advertising shift to online media, same digital platform for years, who we got the digital service, free online competition, free media online might provide content similar to us, so we might lose subscribers. Possible trigger in exhibit, sometimes a director could provide a proposal. Let's invest a massive amount to upgrade the platform. So our digital platform can be improved. Digital first strategy, let's not rely on print media, let's focus on digital media. That could be something that could be tested. Declining subscriptions again could be given as an exhibit. I told you, when you are evaluating proposals, how do you evaluate strategic choices? Good. You can evaluate for suitability, feasibility, acceptability. That's one approach. Or else, if you lack information, you can do a simple cost-benefit analysis. When you're doing cost-benefit analysis, consider both short-term and the long-term. Consider both financial and non-financial. Compare the cost-benefit and make a very rational decision. Are we clear? What you should be ready to do. So if we are discussing about potential upgrades and investments, evaluate the investment. Redesign the revenue model. If we change the business model, what is the impact on our revenue? Assess risks. Recommend implementation approach. Based on your analysis, either cost benefit analysis or SFA approach, you can recommend. Was this clear? I'm giving you possibilities. Again, none of them can be determined in advance. Another area that could be further tested is performance and financial analysis. We discussed our revenue mix is shifting. It's linked to the previous matter as well. Our print media revenue declining, but advertising media increasing. Operating profit is declining. Operating expenses have been increasing. Margin pressure, print volume falling. These were given in the pre-scene. In the exhibit, if they have to test, they might give information on a financial performance report. They'll give a financial performance report giving us breakdown on the cost, which cost has increased, which cost has reduced. Divisional performance. We discussed our company has 8 divisions, but they did not give division-wise breakdown. Revenue was total company. They might give up a division-wise performance. 8 divisions. Sport division has been increasing, another division has decreasing. They might ask us to test on that. Should a particular division be removed? Should a particular division be further invested? Again, this is based on the exhibit information. Cost review, again cost breakdowns. So again, if you are given that, certain things that could help you in deriving the answer is analyze trends, identifying the reason for margin pressure. I always told you, always see why did this happen. Your profit increased, fantastic, but see why. Your cost increased, okay, it's bad, but see why did this happen. Analyze the causes for margin pressure. Recommend KPIs. They haven't given us our company KPIs, but they give us industry KPIs. If there is a particular bottleneck, you can again set KPIs to address that bottleneck. So for example, here operating profit has been declining. You can set up KPIs on operating profit. Suggest corrective actions. So you have set proper internal controls, recommend internal controls to address these problems. Risk management and governance. Now, this is one popular area in SBL, risk management. Even though they mentioned we have a risk committee, there was no indication of a risk register. There is no information on risk register. Having a risk committee where the risk committee is not required by the corporate governance code is good, but we don't know the risk management process. So if they have not mentioned about a risk register in the exam, if you want to manage risks better, I would ask you to recommend a risk register so that we identify risks structuredly and properly track them, improve them, learn from them, solve the problems. From the pre-scene, we identified risk committee exists and they have listed out the sector risks, which is our risk. For example, cyber risks, legal risks, supplier risks, regulatory risks. In the exam, if they are testing on risk, they might give you an exhibit on the risk register. So in the risk register, look at the risks that we have identified. Pre-scene, they gave us general risks. They also told our company also has those set of risks. But if they give you a risk exhibit, in the risk register exhibit, see what risks have been mentioned. But if they mention an extract of risk register, that means certain risks we can't see. So that you can ignore for now. But if they give you a full risk register, for example, then see what specific risks are given. Identify, are there any internal control weaknesses? If a company is doing bad, that means they're not achieving objectives. If they're not achieving objectives, that means that happens because the internal controls are weak. Simple as that. Our revenue is stagnant, operating profit is declining, we are doing bad. We are doing bad means we are not achieving objectives, typically. We are not achieving objectives, that means your internal controls are weak. So they will give you information on identified internal control weaknesses. Crisis situation. They will also give us a situation on the company's crisis. So here they might give us information on how competitors are doing. We are one of the top 5, but there are others in the top 5 whose print sales have been growing. Now those are crisis situations. Okay, don't worry. The examiner will give you the reasons for this. Now those are the reasons you have to evaluate. Evaluate risk controls. If we have internal controls, evaluate them. Here you have to be skeptic, reasonably skeptic. You see something doesn't make sense, question that. Prioritize risks. Tara, we discussed. Risk management process: identify, assess, evaluate, and then respond. So you have to prioritize risks and recommend mitigation strategies. Okay. Ethics and professionalism. As I always say, risk is one important point. Second is about ethics and professionalism. In the pre-scene, information was given on matters like regulator oversight, misinformation risk. If you give us false information, you will be under regulatory scrutiny. Plagiarism, defamation risk, CSR commitments. These information were given. Sometimes in the exam, an exhibit could be given on an article, a press media article that is, accusing us, a controversial article. Or else our magazine has a controversial topic, a very sensitive topic, which had gained the opposition of certain stakeholders. That could be given. Sensitive topics, some people support, some people oppose. They can basically bring this up. Advertise the influence, data misuse issues, possible exhibits on this could be given. So again, when you are looking at ethics, you must apply the code of ethics, apply ethical principles. You must be ethical to be a professional. If you are ethical, you can survive in the long run. Sometimes to be ethical, you might have to incur additional cost. It's fine because you can survive at least. So apply ethical principles. If there's any ethical violation, that has to be immediately rectified. Identify threats to ethics, recommend safeguards, and protect reputation. Industry consolidation. We discussed a matter where companies keep on acquiring minor publishers. Even we were doing it. Merceh was doing it. Industry in continuous consolidation. There could be an exhibit telling that Mercey plans to acquire another business. An acquisition proposal could be given. A merge opportunity could be given. For example, understanding that print magazines sales are at a decline, there's a proposal by another top 5 company to merge with us, only the printing department. That could be done. That could be given. Merge opportunity or sale of division. Should we sell off one of our 8 divisions, which is doing bad? Now, in such situations, number one, assess strategic fit. See any potential synergies. If we integrate with others, if we acquire a business, if we merge with another business, what are the possible integration risks? Like culture conflicts, losing talented employees. These are all potential risks. And what are the implications to stakeholders? Okay, information will be given in the exhibit, but these are areas that could be, possibly tested if those exhibits are given. Stakeholder management. When it comes to stakeholder management, they had given us a big list of the major stakeholders. And they have also mentioned, as at now, Mercey has strong CSR and community positioning on sustainability. If the examiner wants to further elaborate on this, they could give exhibits like a stakeholder complaint. We discussed 60% of the companies owned by institutional investors. So one of the major institutional investors sent an email complaining on a particular matter. We have to see what that matter is. Is that a real problem or not? Stakeholder conflicts or investor concern about the company's operation. For example, investor is raising concern on our printed sales declining. Again, map stakeholder. If there's stakeholder contact, we have to see how to treat the stakeholder. For that, we can use the Mendelow's matrix. Is it a key player? Keep satisfied? Very important. Keep informed, minimal effort. As per the stakeholder mapping, then you can decide how to respond to that. Recommend communication strategy. How to communicate? Are you going to explain them? Are you going to understand them, read their needs? You have to communicate. You have to respond to that strategy. Operations and cost structure. In the pre-scene, they give information on in-house printing. We do printing in-house. Mercey does printing in-house, while others outsource. That's an additional operating cost. Rising costs of paper, distribution network, logistics also has a cost. Vehicle cost, transportation costs, and also postal costs. If they are going to touch upon this area, a potential area that could provide additional information is exhibits on a possible outsourcing proposal. They can say, okay, let's sell off our printer and outsource. Why not us outsource distribution? Let's just print. Let's outsource distribution to a third party. Again, as reasonable finance professionals, we have to look at cost benefit analysis. Or even SFA also captures cost benefit. Cost cutting plans. The company's operating expenses are very high, so they are going to cut operating expenses. See, how are they going to cut? What are the implications of that? Revenue is up, but operating profit has been declining, so they are going to cut certain operating costs. See, what are the implications of that? If it sacrifices quality, you can't, because if you sacrifice quality, company is doomed. So if they give us a proposal to outsource, you can do many options. Cost benefit analysis, or else compare a make or buy option. Either we make our papers or buy printed papers after outsourcing. Look at the cost implications and look at the operational risks. One of our strength was we in-house printing. We can maintain printing quality. We can maintain confidentiality of content. These operational risks that could be faced if we are outsourcing. Technology and cyber security. In the pre-scene, we saw that one of our main revenue sources is through subscribing digital magazines. So subscriber database stores payment information, and we are highly platform dependent. There's a potential exhibit on a possible cyber breach. We lost our customers' information. System failure. Websites are not working. Customers who subscribe, they can't log into the particular magazine. It's not working. System is down. Vendor issues. When it comes to selling through retail, there are problems with the vendor, the retailer. Assess IT governance, because IT is very important here. Website maintenance very important, data security very important, and ensuring that there is our article access through the e-magazine, it's available 24 hours. Identify any potential internal control weakness, potential risks, potential cyber risks. Those are internal control weaknesses. And then suggest response plan. Okay. Sustainability and ESG. Sustainable paper sourcing. They have given us information in the pre-scene on sustainable paper sourcing, declining energy use, and CSR emphasis. Those are good information in the pre-scene. The exhibit, if they want to further elaborate on this, they could provide a stakeholder request on sustainability reporting. I told you earlier, one of our major CSR statements is on ensuring transparency in reporting our non-financial indicators. But if our integrated reporting does not contain non-financial reporting, that's a problem. So there could be a request on sustainability reporting. Sometimes there could be regulatory pressure on reporting about our financial and non-financial implications to the environment. So in such situations, you have to follow them, because when it comes to ESG, that's important for company survival, to attract stakeholders and to gain the support of many different stakeholders, including the government. So recommend ESG strategy improvements. So if we have no transparency in ESG, you can recommend how to improve transparency. Are you going to improve transparency by reporting in the annual reports? Or are you going to do an environmental audit? And also, you can set up performance metrics to measure non-financial performance as well. Finally, organization and culture change. Now, this is something students typically forget. See, we have a lot of inorganic expansion, meaning we keep on acquiring different other businesses. So once we acquire other businesses, we can quickly grow. But the problem is there a cultural mismatch? That's a potential risk. All of us are in the magazine industry. So obviously, once I acquire a smaller business, I might integrate them to my current business. So what about the culture? Their employees and our employees had different cultures. So what about the cultural fit? So we discussed about hybrid working environment, freelancers, digital shift pressure. But potential exhibits could be issue on cultural fit. On top of that, restructuring proposal. If we are going to further acquire businesses, if we are going to potentially merge, how are we going to restructure the organization? Talent retention issue. If certain employees get unhappy because of problem in culture, they might leave the business. So we can't let them go. Those employees are very important. Those editors are the ones who make those editors, those authors, freelance authors and in-house authors. They are the ones who create the content. So if there is a potential staff turnover issue, you might have to understand the reason and provide a solution. Recommend change management approach. If you want to implement a change on expanding, how to implement this. For example, the company wants to acquire 2 or 3 more smaller businesses in magazines. When you basically acquire them, you have to make those employees in those companies, in those subsidiaries, adapt our culture. How are you going to implement this change management? Okay. What are the leadership actions you recommend? So we discussed about change management models, many models. You can basically look at those models. Right, so this was basically the very comprehensive debrief analysis. Do you have any questions? Any areas where you are confused? All good? Right. So I'll have this document shared. Don't worry, I'll have this shared potential through the LMS. Keep in mind, in the final exam, do not bring information, not given by the examiner. Do not bring personal experiences to the case to justify your answer. I told you you can use personal experiences to understand the content given. But don't bring your personal experiences to the exam. That means you are adding information not presented by the examiner, meaning you are bringing information which is fake. You are using fake information. This is one of the major mistakes students do. They think a lot, good, but they forget boundaries. That's bad. Okay. So always keep in mind, do not bring information not presented by the examiner. You can only use information in the pre-scene and the exhibits. Second, do not forget about professional marks. 20 marks. Keep in mind the formats, keep in mind the tone, the language, and always keep in mind, make it easier for the reader to read your answers. Use subheadings, use bullet points, use small paragraphs. Don't write big paragraphs. Break it down, and use simple English. Write it in a way where the reader can easily understand what you are telling. Okay. I would rather avoid using complicated, complex words. If you're using, it's fine. But I recommend using simple, easy to understand words. Just like when you are speaking to someone else in the corporate, you speak in a way the other person can understand what you are speaking. So that's the thing. And always focus on the tasks. If the examiner asks you to list, state, don't explain. You are wasting time. If the examiner asks you to critically evaluate, speak both the pros and the cons, both sides. Don't only speak one side. So I have given that in our handout on each of those particular potential requirements. Make sure you properly understand the difference between explain, analyze, evaluate, list, justify, because this is what gives you marks. Professional marks and as well as the remaining 80 marks. Okay. Good. Ensure you manage your time well. I won't ask you allocate time for each task because we don't know how much marks are given for each task. Okay. Not like your other modules, you know, each section we have so many marks. Here we do not know. You can be given 3 to 4 tasks. Each task marks can be different from the past papers. However, keep in mind, try to have some extra time if possible. Do not keep do not keep a question unanswered. If you feel like you're running out of time, try to finish off your question quickly and then make sure you answer all the questions. Let's say you were focusing more on this third task, you missed out the fourth task, you are missing out the complete marks, right? If you had written at least half, you would get some professional marks and some of the final marks. So make sure you always watch your time and you attempt all the questions. If you run out of time, please manage your time in a way where you allocate some time to all the questions. And the final thing, do not repeat the same arguments again. Sometimes what you wrote for task 1 could be repeated in task 2, but don't write the whole thing again. You can say, as shown in the previous report in task 1, this particular matter, and then quickly write the rest. Don't write the whole thing again. You can cross-refer. When cross-referring, you can cross-refer. In task 1, I mentioned this in depth. Do not repeat the same point again. This has been mentioned by the examiner. Students repeat the same thing again. Waste of time, you don't get marks. It's not professional again. It's not professional. All right. So that's it, scaring. Okay. So I won't scare you further. The exam is good. You can do it. I am very happy with the industry this time. Might make your life a bit more easier. And I wish you all the best.